In this video, I want to talk a little bit about what to do when your parents, particularly one parent, really irritates you or frustrates you within your life, being an adult, okay? So I had a situation with a client recently, and his mother drives him crazy. So he experiences her as being quite needy and clingy, and he feels like when he is sharing his life with her, that she either gets completely dysregulated and upset by whatever it is that she's sharing, or he feels like she hijacks the narrative to kind of focus on herself, and he feels like his needs don't matter at all within that relationship. Now, she's about 78, 79 years old, and he's in his kind of early 50s, and in this particular instance, he was asking me if he should coach his mother and let her know and speak his truth. And I have a really particular philosophy about this because, and a personal story really to share about it. When I was about 10 years ago, my grandmother, she was in her kind of early 90s, and my uncle, who was in his kind of mid-60s, decided to speak his truth with my grandmother. And he was kind of done and tired with looking after her finances and her cards and all that stuff. And he marched over to her nursing home and cut up all her cards in front of her and spoke his truth and shared about the toxicity of their relationship and how she, was just a burden to him, and he needed to be free, and he didn't appreciate that she was leaning on him that much. And she never actually recovered from that conversation, and she died a few weeks later. And I have never forgotten that. And I think I'm telling you this story to impress upon you that beyond a particular age, people can't expect them to transform. And we can't really afford to have showdowns with them. Because my uncle never really got over the fact that he knew within himself that that conversation, being the last conversation that he had with his mother, probably contributed towards a very fast decline in her health. So my personal philosophy is not to have showdowns with people over the age of sort of 73, 74. Not that I don't think people aren't capable of transformation, but I just think it's like, you don't want to live with the consequences of what if that conversation is the last conversation you have. Now you have to live with that. And I think, you have your opportunity as an adult up to a point to have like deep and meaningful and kind of speaking your truth conversations with your parents. And then at some point you need to let that go. So the philosophy that I want to share with you, that I shared with my client, is the philosophy of allowing our parents to retire as our parents. Allowing them at a particular age to no longer have this esteemed, responsible, level or whatever that they need to have in our life, where we can hold them accountable for being better people. And like, I expect more from you. And like, why are you saying that? And why were you rude to this person? Or, why did you react like that to this person or this friend of mine? Or how come you just barged in and shared your opinion? The funny thing is that if you allow them to retire as your parents, they become people that just are allowed to be who they are. And in the instance of this client with his mother, she was lonely, and her needs were for quality time, and she felt irrelevant, and she felt like nobody listened to her, nobody cared about her. Nobody bothered to come and visit her in the nursing home. Everybody just thought she was a meddling old woman. And she was really sad, and that made her kind of clingy and desperate. So he changed tack with her. And I gave him some coaching where I said, what's important is to project manage that relationship to meet her needs in a way that minimizes like the repercussion to yourself, where you have no regrets about your last interactions with her. You need to feel like there's wholeness and completeness in that relationship, so you don't have that burden on your conscience like my uncle had with my grandmother. And he proactively started arranging like hour and a half sort of catch-up sessions with her every week. He'd take her to lunch and she would just talk about all sorts of stuff. Now, I don't know what you're like with your parents, but as parents get older, they're not up to a lot necessarily. Their world is pot plants, what's happening inside their house, what's happening perhaps with their pets, their garden. Maybe there's a recipe or some baking, or maybe there's some drama at the nursing home, or there's like this neighbor did this or that neighbor. Like a lot of it to the rest of us can seem frivolous and annoying, but it's really meaningful and important for them. And if we take that hour and a half as he did and just really listen and attune, like, oh wow, that's really interesting. And so what happened with that neighbor? Oh wow, well, that sounds very dramatic. And just give them all the time and attention and complete undivided like absorption in their world for that period of time. And he did this, and then I sort of recommended that he find some things that she knows a lot about that he can ask her advice on, because she'd felt she'd lost all value and meaning in anyone's life. So he was like, oh yeah, you remember that meatball recipe? How do you make that? And he's making notes and writing it down. She gets all animated, super excited, sharing this with him. And there's like a, wow. And he's like, and by the way, like I have this pot plant that's just totally died. Can I bring it to you? And she goes, like a plant hospital. And he's like, yeah. Can I bring it to the plant hospital? And she's like, yeah, I'll fix the plant. I can do that. Like I'm really good at that. And suddenly all this neediness, clinginess, phone calls, you never visit me, all that noise died. And he actually found common ground and a less irritating relationship. Actually really started to value the relationship that he had with her. But he allowed her to retire as his parent. And she became the woman who raised him. And we have no idea how many summers we have left with our parents. And it's important to never regret our last times with them, our last interactions with them. And if they share their opinions, or they they've researched this and they've watched this on YouTube, and who cares? It's all good. Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, tell me more about this thing that you've learned on the internet. Oh, okay, yeah, awesome. As opposed to, you're irritating me, your opinion is wrong, I expect more from you as my parent, you should be this way, you should be this way, you should be that way. That is stuff of us like a child screaming for, you're not the parent that I remember you to be. And they're not. As we get older, we change as people. Perhaps our lives become a little smaller, and there is the amount of the instances of geriatric loneliness, suicidal ideation, desperate depression is high. So we need to be clear, how do we want those interactions to be? And there are very few relationships that I can say that are truly toxic. I mean, my uncle, when he reflected back and thought about his last showdown with his mother, it wasn't a toxic relationship. He just hadn't quite communicated how much of her interactions with him related to finance was actually a burden for him. Had he had the conversation and shared his feelings and needs, it probably would have got worked out. But instead of doing that, he went in guns blazing and completely caused a really unpleasant situation, and now feels guilty to this day. Totally avoidable. So reflect and think on how you want your last, interactions with your parents to be. Allow your parents to retire as your parents, and think a little bit about, what can I do to meet those needs, minimize irritation to myself. And if you have no clue how to do this, and you're feeling quite estranged from your family, and you want to make up with your family, come and do our Naked Harmony program, because we focus on family estrangement. We build and reconnect families together, and sort of work on the nuances of these conversations in a very bespoke way, because each relationship is quite different. And if that would be helpful, book a clarity call on our website and find out more. And if videos like this are helpful, please do subscribe to our channel. Take care.